Let me ask you something that might sting a little. What if the very thing that makes you powerful is the exact thing holding you back? You call yourself a Sigma male, the lone wolf, the one who doesn't need approval, doesn't beg for attention, doesn't play the stupid games everyone else is addicted to. And sure, that makes you different, mysterious, untouchable. But here's the dirty little secret nobody tells you. Sometimes that same independence, it's not strength, it's fear dressed up in cool clothes, fear of letting people see the real you, fear of needing someone and being disappointed, fear of finding out that the untouchable you might not be as bulletproof as you think. And that's the blind spot. That's what Sigma males don't understand about themselves. Stick around, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. 1. The mask of independence. Let me ask you something that might sting. What if the very thing that makes you feel powerful is the same thing that keeps you trapped? Think about it. You wear independence like armor. You walk alone by choice. You tell yourself you don't need the approval of the crowd, the validation of the herd, or the comfort of belonging. You're the lone wolf, the Sigma. But here's what no one told you. That mask of independence, it doesn't just protect you from others, it hides you from yourself. Sigma males thrive on detachment. They love being outside the system, outside the hierarchy, outside the spotlight. And don't get me wrong, that's not always bad. It gives you freedom, clarity, a sense of control. But here's the blind spot. When your identity depends on not needing anyone, it quietly chains you to solitude. You're free, but also stuck. I knew a guy once. Let's call him Sam. Everyone admired his independence. Never needy, never chasing, always moving on his own terms. But here's what they didn't see. Sam's phone would light up at night, and he'd let it ring out. Not because he was busy, not because he was above it all, but because deep down, connection scared him more than silence. That's the paradox. The mask of independence makes you look untouchable, but really it makes you untouchable even to yourself. And the worst part? You don't even notice it until one day you do. Because what happens when the silence you once loved becomes the very thing that eats you alive? 2. The fear you don't admit. Here's the truth you don't want to hear. Underneath the Sigma's calm exterior, there's fear. Not the obvious kind. Not fear of failure or rejection. It's subtler, quieter, deadlier. It's the fear of being seen too closely. You project this aura of not caring. You walk away from drama. You ghost when things get messy. People think you're mysterious, disciplined, maybe even enlightened. But behind all that, there's something raw. The terror of letting someone close enough to see the chaos inside. It's easy to hide behind the narrative of, I don't need anyone. But sometimes I don't need anyone is just another way of saying, I don't trust anyone. And here's the curveball. Maybe you don't even trust yourself. I'll be honest, I've been there, pretending solitude was my strength, when really it was my shield. Nights staring at the ceiling, convincing myself I didn't care that no one really knew me. But deep down, I cared. I just didn't want to admit it, because admitting it meant vulnerability. And vulnerability? That felt like weakness. But here's the problem. If you never let yourself be seen, how can you ever know who you really are? 3. The comedy of contradiction. Sigma males are walking contradictions, and that's what makes them fascinating. You say you don't need validation, but let's be real. One ignored text, and suddenly you're spiraling. You say you're untouchable, but one person calling you predictable cuts deeper than a breakup. It's almost comedic. You thrive on being misunderstood, yet you secretly ache for someone who gets it without you having to explain. You claim you're above the noise, but you're listening, always listening. You tell yourself you don't play the game, but deep down, you want to win anyway. That's the dark humor of the Sigma life. You're a paradox and you don't even see it. Think of it like a movie. The cool, silent character walks into a bar. Everyone stares. He doesn't say much, but people lean in anyway. Mystery is his currency. But then the camera cuts to him alone at 3 a.m., eating cold leftovers, rewatching the same movie because at least the characters feel familiar. It's tragic and funny at the same time. That's the Sigma existence. Admired in public, haunted in private. And here's the kicker. You wouldn't trade it. Because somewhere inside you'd rather be misunderstood than risk being ordinary. You'd rather carry the contradictions than give up the mystery. But what happens when the contradiction starts to collapse? When the identity you built starts working against you? 4. The fortress and the prison. Every Sigma male eventually learns this lesson. The wall you build to protect yourself doesn't just keep people out. It keeps you in. At first, solitude feels like power. You control who enters, who leaves, who never gets a chance. It's intoxicating. But over time, the fortress becomes a prison. The walls grow higher, thicker, colder, and one day you realize you don't know how to climb out. Picture this. You've built success on your own. No one can claim credit for your wins. You're proud of that. But then something happens. A crisis, a betrayal, a moment of weakness. Suddenly, independence isn't a choice anymore. It's a cage. You need someone, but no one's there. Not because people don't care, but because you never let them close enough in the first place. That's the Sigma blind spot. You think you're untouchable, but you've actually made yourself unreachable. And when life throws you into the storm, whether it's illness, heartbreak, or loss, you realize that solitude doesn't always equal strength. Sometimes it's just another word for loneliness. So the question becomes, how do you escape the prison you built for yourself? 5. The real strength of the Sigma. Here's the twist. Sigma males don't need to stop being Sigmas. You don't need to abandon your independence, your mystery, your refusal to play by the rules. That's your gift. But the real strength of the Sigma isn't in detachment. It's in choice. Freedom isn't about pushing everyone away. It's about knowing you can walk alone and still choosing sometimes to walk with others. That's what Sigmas don't understand about themselves. Your greatest power isn't the mask. It's the courage to take it off when it matters. The lone wolf archetype is seductive, but even wolves know when to rejoin the pack. Not because they're weak, but because real survival requires connection. The paradox resolves itself when you realize that being seen doesn't kill your mystery, it deepens it. So here's the challenge. Let someone in. Just one person. A friend, a mentor, a partner. Let them see the chaos, the humor, the contradictions. Because that's where your true Sigma strength shines. Not in being untouchable, but in being unafraid to be touched. So here's the truth. You don't have to stop being a Sigma. You don't have to give up the independence, the mystery, the lone wolf edge that makes you who you are. That's your gift. But understand this. Your greatest strength isn't in being untouchable. It's in knowing when to take the mask off and still stand strong. The world doesn't need another shadow slipping away into silence. It needs you, the real you. The one who can walk alone but still chooses sometimes to let someone walk beside him. And if any part of you felt this message, if it made you stop or question or even just breathe a little differently, then don't disappear into the noise again. Stick around. Because here we dig deeper. We face the blind spots together. Subscribe if you're ready, not because I told you to, but because you know this is the part of the journey you can't do in silence anymore. Because the one thing Sigma males don't understand about themselves is exactly what will set them free.